Welcome, I'm Sheana Davis, the Epicurean Connection, and today we have cheesemaker Keith joining us from Cofield Cheese in Sebastopol. Keith, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
It's always a pleasure to be with you, Sheana.
Please share with us what you're doing out in the Barlow.
So we've been in production about 3.5 years. I started making cheese 12 years ago in Minnesota with Alamar Cheese. That's still going strong. In fact, my oldest, Alexandra, is working with me now there, which is awesome. But I grew up in Northern California, and when the kids were up and out of the house, I had a dream to come back to Northern California and make cheese here. There's no better milk, certainly in California, than in Sonoma County. And it's a beautiful place to live. So I dreamed up this project of making British-inspired cheese, which is what we're doing at WM Cofield Cheesemakers. The one cool thing about this project that I wasn't able to do the first time around was I was actually able to go to England and learn how to make Stilton and cheddar at the source. I spent a couple of days with Joe at Stichelton Dairy in Nottinghamshire, and 3 days with Tom Culver at Westcombe Cheddar. And so I learned the techniques there. Obviously, they didn't give away all the trade secrets, but they were very, very helpful and courteous. And so I learned as much of the technique and tradition as I could, with the idea that marrying that with beautiful Sonoma County organics, single source Jersey milk would be a good thing. And so that's what we're up to. We're focused on the blue. We have these large 30-pound cloth-bound cheddars that the original McKinley ages out a minimum of 12 months. We've held some back that are as old as 24 months, and we're selling that as what we're calling McKinley extra aged, which is really remarkable how dramatically the cheese changes in 12 months.
Oh, Keith, I might have to add that to my order next week.
All right, well, we can do that.
How does that work in mac and cheese is the question.
Beautifully. We have a new restaurant in the Barlow, and they're doing like a 5-cheese mac and cheese. They're using our blue as one inside the mac and cheese, but they're grating the extra aged on top, and it's beautiful.
Okay, I'm in.
All right.
Where do you source your milk from?
We work with one family. Their last name is Camozzi. They started dairying in Petaluma in the Two Rock Valley in the early 1900s. Bob Camozzi is sort of the patriarch of the family now, but his daughters and sons are all involved.
Aren't they like fourth generation now?
I think fifth.
Yeah, fifth, that's amazing.
Yeah, and Bob's great-grandfather was one of the original founders of the Petaluma Co-op, which eventually became Clover Milk. So they go back a long way. They have a small herd, approximately 250 to 300 head of jerseys over in Bloomfield, which they call Willow Creek jerseys. And Bob's daughter, Stephanie, sort of shepherds over that. And the beautiful, organic, high-fat Jersey milk. And we pick it up, fresh from morning milking. And, it's in the vat within 45 minutes of the time it leaves the dairy. And we make cheese that day with the fresh milk. We never hold the milk. We just make it.
Amazing. So what are your varieties of cheese you're making out at the Barlow now?
So we do the cloth-bound cheddar, the McKinley. We do the extra age, which is the 24. And then we do a Stilton style. Stilton's protected, just like the word champagne. So we call it a Stilton-inspired or Stilton-style cheese. And it's a bit of a riff. It's not identical. The size of the wheel is not exactly the same as the size of the wheel in Britain, but the height to width ratio is similar, and the technique certainly is similar. We're in between batches of the blue right now, hoping in about a month to release the next batch, which is looking really good. But it's a very tricky cheese to learn to make, and I still absolutely have not mastered it. But I'm what I lack in intelligence, I make up for in persistence. So I just keep at it. And then because I was in Minnesota for 20 plus years of my adult life, we have to make fresh cheese curds because I just fell in love with fresh cheese curds, and I think California needs more of them.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. We can't wait. So in September, your cheese will be our featured cheese of the month. each
Girl.
month your cheese at the Epicurean Connection for our delivery and takeout. And so your curds will be our featured cheese. And last month we had Valley Ford. The month before we had Two Rock Goat. So we're definitely keeping it in your valley correctly.
We love that, and we're obviously honored to be a part of it.
And I know that you're a big part of the California Artisan Cheese Guild and the Cheese Trail. So maybe share your role. You and I have a meeting coming up when we set the date.
Yes. So I was very fortunate when I started making cheese. Obviously, I was a middle-aged guy, and I knew I had a strong background in baking, but I'd never made cheese before. But I was fortunate enough to convince Sue Conley from Cowgirl Creamery to mentor me. And then she introduced me to Margaret Morris, who became sort of my cheese whisperer. And between those two women and a lot of falling on my face, I figured out how to start making decent cheese. And I'm still learning, of course. But now that I'm in California and I have a little bit more time to give back, it's my turn to return the favor. And so, whatever we can do with the Cheese Trail and Vivian Strauss, we're always, every cheesemaker in California is indebted to her deeply. And then the Cheese Guild, I've been a member of the board for going on about a year now, and it's really a thrill. There's a great mix of cheesemakers, retailers, wholesale folks, and other people that are in the dairy world, but not necessarily cheesemakers. And we're all in it together. And that's the greatest piece of this, is that, I don't see any of my fellow artisan cheesemakers as competitors. We're all sailing in the same direction.
Absolutely. And for anyone listening, anyone can become a member of the California Artisan Cheese Guild, whether you're a cheesemaker, cheesemonger, and a consumer. You can become a member to support.
Yeah, and enthusiasts, and we need more of them, and we would love to have them. Obviously, this is a really challenging time for cheesemakers. We've done some sort of extension of folks who might be struggling so that they can maintain their membership through this hard time. But if there's any folks out there that love California artisan cheese, want to become enthusiasts, that money really helps the organization and all of us, indirectly and directly.
Absolutely. And I see some of our retailers stepping up to become members, which is great. Cheese
Yes.
Plus, Oliver's.
Yes.
These retailers are supporting the good cause of the California Artisan Cheese Guild. So I thank them for stepping up, and hopefully many more will.
There you go.
So I want to show you these cheese molds here, Keith. These are the old cheese molds from Redwood Hill Goat Farm.
Nice.
And these are the cheese molds, and I'm going to deliver you 6 of them, ration them out, and see what we can come up with your Jersey cow milk.
I'm ready anytime you are. We've got 2 vats. So we've got the big vat where we make the cheddar and the blue, and then we've got the smaller vat, which was my original cheese vat from Alomar, 200-gallon vat. So I started with 12 years ago, and I shipped it out here when we got a bigger vat in Minnesota. So it's like my good luck charm, hopefully. And it's a great vat to make cheese in, and I'm excited to work with you. I'm sure we will have a lot of fun.
We will. So I still have my 200-gallon vat, which I store at Belfiore.
Yep.
And that's the baby. It's like my vat of the beginning of cheese making.
Yeah, I have a very strong attachment to it.
Me too. So today I took your fresh cheese curds and I tossed them with a little bit of tall grass olive oil, which is produced about a mile away from our warehouse.
Great.
And I tossed it with some fresh, so we work with a local farm on 8th Street East, and we dried their fresh herbs. We have oregano, basil, thyme, and sage, kind of our Mediterranean mix, if you would.
Sure.
And we tossed your cheese curds with it, with the olive oil, and they're divine. And
I wish I was there to taste them.
so
But
you would.
cheese curds are remarkably versatile. We get a lot of folks who come in, and pre-pandemic, we always were very generous samplers at our retail shop. That's much more difficult to do now. But when we had the curds available, people could taste them. And if they'd had no experience with, really authentic sort of Midwest/Canadian cheese curds, they were all, sort of pleasantly surprised. And then, there's so many applications with cheese curds that you don't necessarily think about. I mean, obviously you can just munch on them as a snack, but I put them in salads all the time. Obviously they pan and deep fry beautifully. And of course the poutine, you can't go wrong with a poutine.
No. So I'm going to show you, actually, I'm going to step 2 feet over. We worked with Sonoma County Health Department to come up with a sampling process for.
Nice.
And I'm going to get it, pardon me, everybody. So these are biodegradable sampling units, and we put a cheese curd or a piece of our cheese in, and they're little 1 ounce souffle cups with a lid, biodegradable, and we pack them ahead of time before we open.
Yep.
And we guesstimate, if you would, listeners, guesstimate how many people are going to come through.
Yes.
And we pack one of your cheese curds in there. And then when guests come in, they can now have a cheese sample.
That's wonderful and smart. I have heard of some other outfits doing, takeout samples. And I think that's, at least for the time being, that's where we are.
It's where we are, but for the record, I know there's a couple of retailers tuning in. Our sales went up 60% on our cheese last week by doing this sample pack.
Guess what I'm doing in the shop next weekend?
So it's just simple math, but we hand them over, and we, of course, wearing gloves. I'm not, because I'm recording, but it's made a huge difference. And so working with Sonoma County Health Department, and now it's gone up to governor level, that this demoing is going to be approved for retailers and cheesemakers alike.
Awesome. You've done the work for us, Sheana.
That's what we're supposed to do. As you said earlier, all rise with the tide. And so if we come up with a plan that the health department likes at county level, why not share with Napa, Marin, and then state?
Yes.
So it's going to be the new sampling level, and Good Earth Market in Mill Valley will be starting this program Saturday.
Awesome. Well, we're right behind you.
Yes. So I think that it's important, because when people can't taste in the old days, they could taste everything and enjoy it. But now we can hand it to them and they enjoy it. And I know it's backwards of us, California, trying to save the ecology and the environment, but it's how we have to survive right now.
Right.
The best we can do is use biodegradable containers and move forward. I see a couple questions. Karina, can you open the question lines? I see 2 questions coming in. Keith, are you ready for questions?
I hope so.
Thank goodness for my daughter. She moderates and manages the Zoom classes for us.
It's nice to have a daughter to lean on every now and again.
Oh, I think I've leaned on her pretty heavy during the pandemic, and thankfully she's drawn through.
Yeah.
Amy, do you have any questions? No? Well, I see one question. Keith, how long are you, pardon me, I have to read my computer. How long is your cheddar aged in your wheels?
So the wheels are between 25 and 30 pounds. They start out at 30, and then, with some evaporation, they usually end up somewhere between 25 and 30 pounds. They're wrapped in muslin cloth and coated. So they, the rind is protected, but the cheese can still breathe. This is obviously an old school traditional way of doing it. And we age our cheddars a minimum of 12 months. And that's kind of the sweet spot for when it starts to really taste really good. And, but of course we did hold some back to see what they'd be like at 18 and 24 months. And I knew it would be different, but it's really dramatically different. So the texture of the original cheddar is what you would expect from cheddar. Breaks down beautifully in your mouth. You've got the, unmistakable cheddar notes. We've, because we're using gorgeous milk and an interesting cocktail of cultures, we've got, some really nice subtle notes beyond the cheddar. So it's what I like to call a subtly complex cheese that hopefully compels you to want another bite. But the extra age has lost a fair amount of moisture, almost to the point where it's texturally like a parm. The tyrosine crystals have really gotten going. So the crunchy bits are in there, and some people absolutely adore the crunchy bits. a bit of a sharper cheddar acidic bite at the beginning. And then really one of the things that's just fascinating is the finish has a little sweetness to it. And when we first released this, which was about a year ago, there's a young lady who now lives in Sonoma, but she's British and she worked at Neil's Yard. And I said, it's got a sweetness. And she said, toffee. And I said, yes, toffee, I will steal that. So it's got a little sweet toffee note at the finish, subtle, but definitely present. And it's just endlessly fascinating what cheese can taste and taste like. Remarkable.
One question, do you use vegetable or animal rennet?
We use traditional rennet. So with Alamar, I started out, and we continue to use veg rennet there. I think for soft ripened cheeses, and every cheesemaker has preferences and logic behind the choices that they make. The reason I decided to go with traditional rennet is because we want to make it in the traditional sense, the same way that the folks in Britain are doing it, and where I learned they were using traditional rennet. I know that that excludes some vegetarians from tasting it, and that saddens me, but that was the logic behind the reasoning.
Okay, and we have another question. How did you find the name for your company?
Okay, so my name is Keith Cofield Adams. Cofield is my mother's birth name. And William is my father's first name. So I borrowed a bit from each of the family, and you know, there's not a lot of people in the cheese world that name their companies directly after themselves. We're more modest than like winemakers who almost, you know, lots of wineries name them after themselves. So rather than just like kind of Kurt Daimler did with Beecher's, we took my mother's birth name, which is also my middle name, and I love it, Cofield. And then we borrowed my dad's. And when I was a kid, my dad was a college professor, and I lived in London when I was 9 and when I was 17. And I remember going out to all these sites, and we'd invariably end up in graveyards because there's so many beautiful historic graveyards in England. And you would see the W and then an M with a line underneath it as an abbreviation for William. And that's always stuck with me. So that's in our logo. It's got the WM with the line underneath, and so we borrowed a bit from both my branches of my family. But we're pretty strongly Anglo, the whole bunch of us.
Well, when we post this up on YouTube, we'll be sure to put your logo in so the guests can see your logo.
We'd appreciate it.
Absolutely. And we put your website so people can mail order your. Can you tell us about your mail order packages that you're doing right now? Because you have some fine partners.
We can. We've got a nice little shopping section on our website. You can go to click on the button that says shop, and that'll give you options. You know, if you want to buy a t-shirt or a hat, terrific. We've got like a really interesting wine and cheese get together. My partner, Rob Hunter, who I went to college with back in the day and has been making wine in Napa Valley for 35 years. We do a little get together for 8 people where we do wines and cheeses as a tasting option. So that's on there as well. You can buy individual pounds of cheese, curds, cheddar, extra aged cheddar, and the blue. And then we also have a cool little thing called a picnic box where you just order it. It's $50 and you end up with 3 of our cheeses, a nice chub of fatted calf charcuterie, beautiful jam from Lala's in Petaluma, and then rustic crackers. So you've got a little picnic in a box, and we can ship that anywhere in the country. And then for folks who want to be a part of this for more than just a one-time deal, you can join our cheese club. And that's all of our cheeses every quarter, plus a guest cheese. So we just pick something we really love at the time. Usually, I mean, the cheeses I focus on are local or have a story from the Midwest of people that I know and love. For instance, like Jody Reed at Shepherd's Way,
Right.
you know, that kind of thing. So in every case, I'm trying to spotlight an exceptional cheese and cheesemaker.
Absolutely. So I have a question. What makes cloth bound unique?
Okay, so there was cloth before there was plastic. Cheesemakers use many things, vegetable ash, and cloth certainly to cover their cheeses to prevent oxygen from getting to the cheese, or at least protecting as much of it as they could. So they used what they had, and what they had on the farm back in 17, certainly 1800s, they had muslin cloth and they had lard, and that was what they used to seal the rind of the cheddar. And what they found was if they just stored the cheddar unbound, the rind would get too much oxygen, there would be cracks in the rind, and the cheese would evaporate too quickly. So you ended up with not the best result. But what's nice about cloth is it will protect, it will trap in much of the moisture, but it will continue to allow the cheese to breathe. Obviously, there's a lot of cryovac and plastic wrapped cheddar out there, and some of them are exceptional. But it takes longer to get to exceptional because there's not much oxygen transfer happening. So with cloth bound, this is a case where I'll make the argument that the old technology is better than the new. The drawback, of course, is that our cheddars, will do really remarkable things between 12, 24, up to 36 months. But, just like wine, inevitably, you're going to reach a peak. And with cloth bound, you'll reach it sooner than you would with a plastic wrapped cheddar.
That makes sense. I mean, wrapped in cryovac, it can't breathe, so it takes longer.
Exactly.
Age. So you'll be honored. Our next guest today is Kurt Damier from Beechers.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, so he's at 1 o'clock today.
Oh, cool.
We've actually tripled.
He's an inspiration because when I was starting out, I looked around the country for places that were successful and had a sort of a sense of who they were as a company. And I had been to just wandering around the Pike Street Market, and I ended up at Beechers across the way. And in some ways, what's happening with Cofield at the Barlow, we're not in a big urban downtown, but we are in a city environment, and it allows people to walk by. We have a big glassed-in area so people can watch as we make cheese, and we have a really nice picture window under our aging rooms. So even if you come on a day when we're not making cheese, you can see what's happening, and that was more than a little directly borrowed from Kurt.
He would be honored to know that.
Well, please pass my thanks along.
I will. He's a very sharing and very caring gentleman, to say the least. And when he was a keynote speaker at one of our cheese conferences, the room was like you could hear a pin drop because everybody was just in awe of his conversation. And not only in his cheesemaking, but his community and how he gives back to his community. And
yes,
especially during the pandemic, he started a school meal program for his neighborhood, which is amazing. So
yeah.
We have a question for you. Do you have a future cheese in mind?
Me.
You.
Well, the running joke with my partner is that I have to go back to England for further research.
Can I join you?
I hope you can. That would be a good time. We could bring a film crew, and we'd probably have a good time. I'm drawn to a number of different cheeses in Britain. We're gonna, of course, stay that motivated by that. Double Gloucester, something I've thought of. Red Leicester. I'm a huge fan of Caerphilly, so we're gonna get there. And I think what I've learned.
Somebody asked me for Cornish.
Cornish, yes.
I had to take my glasses off to read that. Sorry.
So we're going to get there, but I think the next one I do will be inspired by a style of cheese from Britain, but we might take a left turn or two along the way. I think I'd like to do something that's, instead of just straight down the middle traditional, is do something a little whimsical, and we'll see what that turns out to be.
That sounds very Sonoma County.
Yes.
Well, Keith, I want to thank you for taking the time and being part.
Rare cheeses.
Oh, we have another question coming in. What is your most rare cheese that you make? And unique, rare or unique?
Well, I think the extra aged is the revelation of the last year, is how dramatically different it is than the traditional cheddar, and how much fun we're having with it, comparing and contrasting, using it for different cooking applications. So I would say the extra age is the rarest thing we have going right now.
We have some good questions too, Keith. You're getting some good questions. How do you pierce your blue cheese?
Well, we started out hand piercing it, which was the way they did it back in the day. We have a little pneumatic air press machine that we can set the needles in, and it just goes down and punches into them. And we usually are doing that at about 2 months. And then that activates the air passages, then activate the blue, and we're usually at market within 3.5 to 4 months on the blue. And it is a humbling cheese to make, Sheana. Just, raw milk, not cooked, held at room temperature for 5 days, then rubbed up. I mean, there's just any number of directions where things can go a little south, and I hope I've made all the mistakes, and we seem to be getting better and better, but it is the most challenging cheese I've ever tried to make, for sure.
Oh, I believe it. Well, before we close out, can you share your website, please? And we'll be sure to put it up on the YouTube.
Happy to. It's WM Cofield, COFIELD, the word cheese, it's all lowercase.com.
And we'll put that on YouTube, and all of our listeners will send an email out with your website and the video for them to review.
Awesome.
So thank you, Keith, and we'll be in touch. You and I have a marketing meeting, and
Yeah.
I want to see these samples out, by the way.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for having me, and I look forward to seeing you next Thursday with a batch of fresh curds, and anything I can do to help you, you need only ask.
And right back at you. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for tuning in to Cheese Chats. And today at 1 o'clock, we'll have Kurt Damier from Beecher's. So thank you again, Keith, and have a safe afternoon.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.